All right, today we are settling one of the biggest debates for any RVer or DIYer out there. We're staging a head-to-head battle, flexible versus rigid solar panels. We're going to dig into some real-world test data and find out which one is actually the right choice for your project. I mean, this is the big question, right? You're setting up your van, your RV, an enclosed trailer, whatever it is, and you have to make this call. One looks all sleek and modern, and the other is that classic, tried-and-true workhorse. So where should you put your hard-earned money? Now get this. In a direct, side-by-side test, one of these panels produced a full 26% more power than the other one over a single day. That's a huge difference when you're trying to squeeze every last drop of power out of the sun. Well, if it were that simple, this would be a really short explainer, wouldn't it? That 26% number, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And as you're about to see, it is far from the most important number in this whole showdown. Okay, let's dive in and meet the two contenders that went head-to-head in this real-world test. So in one corner, we have a 130-watt flexible panel from EcoWorthy. It's super lightweight and it mounts completely flush right on a surface. Now that little detail has massive implications for its lifespan, and we are definitely going to get to that later. In the other corner, you have the traditional 100-watt rigid panel, also from EcoWorthy. It's got that sturdy frame, which creates an all-important air gap underneath. And yeah, you notice right away, the flexible panel has that higher 30-watt rating. Now, to get data you can actually trust, you have to make sure the test is as fair as it can possibly be. And that is exactly what happened here. So how do you make it a fair fight? Well, first, both panels were tested on the exact same day, mounted side by side on a trailer roof. So they saw the exact same sun, the exact same clouds. But here's the really clever part. In the afternoon, the power stations and the meters they were plugged into were swapped. This totally eliminates any chance that a quirky piece of testing equipment could throw off the results. This is a true apples-to-apples comparison. All right, let's get to the first round of results. This is all about the raw power, the total amount of energy each panel kicked out over the entire day. And here are the numbers. The 130-watt flexible panel cranked out a total of 232 watt-hours. The 100-watt rigid panel, 184 watt-hours. You do the math, and that is a 26% advantage for the flexible panel. Plain and simple. So, case closed, right? The flexible panel is rated 30% higher, and it produced 26% more power. It really seems like the obvious choice. But this is where the story gets so much more interesting. Now, what's really fascinating is what happens when we start to break these numbers down and look at performance from a totally different angle. Okay, let's factor in some other really crucial things. First, size. The flexible panel is actually bigger. It takes up 7.1 square feet compared to just 5.8 for the rigid one. It also costs more, about $81 versus $63. So when we calculate efficiency, how many watts you're actually getting per square foot of precious roof space, they are incredibly close. 7.3 for the flexible, 7.1 for the rigid. And what about value? The cost for each actual watt you got on test day. It's practically a tie. $1.56 per watt for the flexible and $1.54 for the rigid. All of a sudden, that big 26% lead, it's pretty much vanished. But wait, there is one more variable we haven't even talked about yet. And this single factor, it can completely change the game for one of these panels, while leaving the other one totally in the dust. So what is it? It all comes down to the angle of the panel to the sun. See, a flexible panel that's glued to your roof is stuck. It's lying flat and that's it. But a rigid panel on a frame, oh, that is a whole different story. And this just illustrates the point perfectly. Take that 100-watt rigid panel. Lying flat, it was putting out 52 watts. But by simply tilting that same exact panel to the perfect 36-degree angle for that location and time of year, its output skyrocketed to 84 watts. That is a massive boost in performance that is just physically impossible to get from a flush-mounted flexible panel. So, when you consider all the data, the raw power, the value, and that game-changing effect of being able to angle it, what is the final recommendation? Let's break it all down. Let's look at the final tally sheet here. The flexible panel, sure, it wins on initial power when it's lying flat, and it's lightweight. But its cons are serious. You can't angle it, and crucially, it's really prone to heat damage and has a super short lifespan. We're talking maybe only 2 to 3 years. Now, the rigid panel, yeah, it's heavier and puts out less when flat, but its advantages are huge. It's durable, you can angle it for maximum power, and it has a proven lifespan of 20 years or more. And that brings us to the most important point. The expert who ran this whole test came to a very clear conclusion. For long-term reliability, there's no comparison. He's going with rigid panels all day long. That small initial power advantage of the flexible panel is just not worth the trade-offs. And here is the killer detail. The reason that lifespan is so different. Because a flexible panel is mounted flush, it traps heat underneath it. That heat builds up and literally cooks the panel, degrading its ability to produce power and leading to a super early failure. A rigid panel, on the other hand, is on a frame. It has an air gap. Air flows underneath, which keeps it much, much cooler and lets it last for decades. So it all boils down to this one question for your project. Is a little bit of initial convenience and that sleek look worth ripping out your whole system and replacing it every few years? Or does the long-term reliability and the much higher potential power output of a system designed to last 20 years make a whole lot more sense? The data really suggests that for most of us, durability is the real winner here.